This is the second part of our percents and proportions video, and so we are going to just look at how to find a different piece. Last time we found how to find a part given a whole and percent, and so now we are going to learn how to find a different part. So here again is all of our vocabulary. So these are the same as last time. You should be familiar, but there are the definitions again if you need them. And then this is the same thing. Oops, the T got cut off. This is the same template that we looked at last time. So last time we were finding the part, and now we're going to find the percent and whole. So these are just some of our straight up examples, not really in a word problem, but we're going to see how we can use that proportion setup to find different parts now. So if I look at this, it says 21 is, meaning 21 is a part of what number? It's 15%. So here's my percent. That's always easy because it has the percent symbol. And then of what number? So I basically want to know what part is 21 of some number that is equal to 15%. So when I set this up, my part is going over my whole. I don't know what my whole is right now, so that's what I'm going to figure out. And remember, my percent always goes over 100 because the whole representation of a percentage is 100%. So 15 will go right there. And so now when I look at this, I need to figure out how to go from 21 to 15 or 15 to 21. But I cannot multiply by any whole number to do that easily. So just like in the last video, we're going to simplify this to get an equivalent ratio that will hopefully work. So if I simplified 1500ths by 5, I end up getting 3/20ths. And so I can multiply 3 by 7 to get 21. So we're going to just use this ratio instead, since they are all equivalent. So I'm going to reset up my proportion just so that it's neat and organized and I don't get confused. So to go from 3 to 21, I just said we multiply by 7, which means we're going to multiply by the same number in the denominator. So 20 times 7 should give me my whole. 20 times 7 is 140. So this means that 21 is 15% of 140. So here I have another one. I want to know 30 is 75% of what number? What whole number is 30 75% of? So I would set up 30 as the part. I'm trying to find the whole. And I know that I want that equivalent to 75% out of 100. So again, when I look at my fraction that I have with 75 over 100, I can't really go from 30 to 75 by multiplying by a whole number. So I'm going to simplify 75 hundredths down. This is another one of those benchmark percents. So hopefully by now you know that 75% is equivalent to 3/4. If not, you could simplify by 25 and figure that out. So now we're going to just use 3/4 instead because there is a relationship between 30 and 3 by multiplying by 10. So this is my new proportion I would set up. And so I'm going to multiply 3 times 10 is 30. So 4 times 10 will be 40. So really 30 is 75% of 40. You can also see if you put these numbers, if you put the part to whole over each other, so if I had put like 30/40ths like this, or 30 to 40, see how I could simplify by 10 and I get 3/4? So that's a way you can check to see if you did it properly, is just seeing if these are equivalent ratios, which you should be pretty familiar with because we've been doing that quite a bit. So this last one, and again, these are just like very straightforward, so they're pretty easy to pick out the parts, but 6 is the part, 40 is the percentage, of course, because it has the percent symbol, and I want to know what is the whole in this situation. So of what number? 6 is 40% of what? So I don't know what the whole is, but I know 6 is my part, so I'm going to set it up like this. 40 goes across, and 100 goes in the denominator, because that is always the whole for a percent. Okay, so this is another one where, remember, not always you have to simplify, but in this situation I would again have to simplify because 6 and 40, I can't multiply by something to get from 6 to 40 easily. So I'm going to simplify this by 20 again, actually, and just change this to 2/5. So and if maybe you simplify by 10 first and you get 4/10. Well, I still can't go from 6 to 4. So you need to keep simplifying until you can find ratios that will multiply easily. So I'm going to reset up my proportion using this equivalent ratio of 2/5. And so 2 times 3 is 6 going this way. So I'm going to do 5 times 3 is 15. So 6 is 40% of 15. And if we just kind of estimate that, if you think about 50% is half, right? So if I just say instead of 15, let's round it down to 14 real quickly. Half of 14 is 7. So it makes sense that 6 is 40% of 15. So you can also kind of do those checks to see if your answer makes sense. So now we're just going to look at a couple word problem situations. So these are, again, some that you have seen before that we were using the strip diagram to solve. So now you have another option. You can use a proportion if you want when you see these. So it says you're spending $24 or 80% of your allowance going to the movie with your friends. How much is your allowance? So the way that we know that this is the part is because they're saying if you spend $24 or 80%, they're saying this is a part of your allowance. We want to know what your whole allowance is. So this right here is the part. 80% is what is equivalent to that part. And then we want to know how much is the whole allowance. Okay, so that's how you can kind of figure out that it's the part instead of the whole, because I know that's a little bit hard at first, is to just pick through these word problems and figure out what each piece they're giving you is. So this would be my setup for my proportion. And 100 always goes in the denominator, and I would put 80 in the numerator on the percent side. So I cannot go from 80 to 24 or 24 to 80. So this is another one where I need to just simplify this down. So I can simplify by 10 and get 8 because 8 times 3 is 24. So let's just make this 8/10, even though that's not simplified all the way. You could simplify it completely to 4/5 and it would still work. But let's just do this now because I know it's an easy simplification. So I'm going to use that equivalent ratio instead. So this stays the same. And then I'm making that equal to 8/10. And so now I can say, well, 8 times 3 is 24. So 10 times 3 would give me 30. So my whole allowance is $30. Okay. So here's just another one. It says you answered 18 questions correctly on a test and you earned a 90%. How many questions were on the test? So you answered 18 of them and you got a 90. So obviously you didn't answer every single one or you would have gotten 100. So this is the part. And my percent is my grade. You earned a 90%. And I want to know how many total questions on the test. So this is the whole that I'm trying to figure out. So I have 18 to however many, I don't know. That's what I'm trying to find out. And that's equivalent to 90% out of 100. So here is my proportion setup. So if I simplified this down, because right now 18 to 90, I can't think of any multiplicative factor that can get me there. So I'm going to just simplify this down to make it easier for myself. And I'm going to simplify that to 9/10. So I can divide 90 by 10, 100 by 10, get 9/10. So then I would rewrite my proportion. So I have 18 over, I'm not sure, I'm trying to figure that out. That's a question mark, it's a little bit sloppy. And that's equal to 9/10. So now, really easily I can say, oh yes, 18 and 9 have a relationship. 9 times 2 is 18. So 10 times 2 would be 20. So there were 20 total questions on the test. Okay, and so if you got 18 out of 20, you get a 90%. So I want you to try this one. This was one that was very similar to a test that was either, I think it was the Unit 1 and 2 test, had a question kind of like this about jelly beans. And so it says, you have a bag of M&Ms that has 16 red M&Ms, and the red M&Ms make up 40% of the bag. So how many total M&Ms are in the bag? So 16 is the part, because this is not the full bag. This is just the part that's red. So this is the part that's equivalent to 40% of the whole, and we want to know how many total M&Ms would be in the bag. So I want you to pause it right now, write this problem down, and try to set it up and solve it, and we'll talk about it in class. So here's our little recap. And so again, just know how to set up proportions when you're working with percents. And this time we found how to find the whole given the part and percent. So if you need to go back and look at any examples, feel free to do that. And make sure you bring your math journal with your notes and any questions that you have to class next time.